The morning sun slipped through the blinds of Keanu Reeves's downtown apartment as he studied his reflection in the bathroom mirror. He ran his fingers through his hair, now sprinkled with temporary gray dye. The fake glasses sat heavy on his nose, and the beard he'd grown out over the past month was now shaped differently than his usual style. "Well, hello, Kevin Reed," he said to his reflection, trying out the fake name he'd chosen for himself. Keanu needed a break. After finishing back-to-back films and with 3 months before his next project began, he craved something different. Not another beach vacation or meditation retreat, but a chance to step completely out of his celebrity bubble and remember what normal life felt like. The idea had come to him while talking with his longtime friend and stunt double, Rick. "Sometimes I just want to be nobody for a while," Keanu had confessed over late-night burgers after their last day of shooting. To walk around without being recognized, to do regular work, to see how people really live when they're not trying, to impress a movie star. Rick had laughed. "So get a disguise and a regular job. Be like that show Undercover Boss, but for actors." What had started as a joke quickly became a plan. Rick's cousin worked in HR at Apex Innovations, a fast-growing tech company in the city. With some creative background paperwork and the promise of absolute secrecy, Kevin Reed was hired as a part-time member of the cleaning staff. Keanu grabbed his backpack and the lunch he'd packed the night before. Simple tuna sandwich, apple, and water bottle, what he imagined a regular maintenance worker might bring. He'd researched the role like he would any character, watching documentaries about service workers and reading forums where janitors discussed the challenges of their job. The bus ride to downtown took 40 minutes. He could have driven his motorcycle, but that seemed too flashy for Kevin Reed. Standing on the crowded bus, holding a handrail and swaying with the vehicle's movements, Keanu felt a strange peace wash over him. Nobody looked twice at him. He was just another face in the morning commute, another body trying not to spill coffee on strangers. Outside the gleaming Apex Innovations building, Keanu took a deep breath. The 50-story glass tower reflected the clouds above, its lobby buzzing with employees swiping ID cards and hurrying to elevators. He checked his watch, 7:15 a.m. His shift started at 7:30. "First day jitters?" asked a voice beside him. Keanu turned to see an older man in the same dark blue uniform he wore. The name tag read Lou. "That obvious, huh?" Keanu replied, adjusting his fake glasses. Lou chuckled, the wrinkles around his eyes deepening. "You're standing outside staring up, like you're about to climb Mount Everest. Come on, I'll show you the ropes." Lou turned out to be the head of the maintenance department, working at Apex for nearly 15 years. As they rode the service elevator to the basement level, he explained the daily routines, which floors needed attention first, and where all the supplies were kept. "Most important thing to remember," Lou said as they filled their cleaning carts, "is to be invisible. These tech types don't want to see us. We're like magic elves who make their messes disappear while they're in meetings." "Invisible," Keanu repeated, nodding. He was good at observation. It was part of his craft as an actor. But being the one who wasn't seen, that was new. By mid-morning, Keanu's back was already aching. He'd mopped 3 bathroom floors, emptied dozens of trash bins, and wiped down countless surfaces. The work was physically demanding in ways he hadn't expected, despite his regular workout routines for action movies. "You'll get used to it," Lou assured him during their break. "First week's always the hardest on the body." As they sat in the small break room, other maintenance workers filtered in and out. They nodded to Keanu, a few introducing themselves, but mostly they just ate quickly before heading back to work. There was Pedro, who had 3 kids and worked a second job on weekends, Vicky, who was studying nursing and did her homework during lunch, and Hank, who barely spoke but had the fastest cleaning technique Keanu had ever seen. None of them showed any sign of recognizing him. The disguise worked perfectly, or perhaps they were simply too tired from their work to notice. After lunch, Keanu was assigned to the executive floors, 47 through 50. Lou had warned him these were the most demanding areas. "The higher you go, the pickier they get," he'd said. "And the CEO's floor, that's floor 50, watch yourself up there. Mr. Stone can be challenging. Maxwell Stone had founded Apex Innovations 10 years ago, turning it from a small startup into a billion-dollar company. His face appeared regularly in business magazines, always with the same stern expression and piercing gaze. Keanu had done his research on Stone too. The CEO had a reputation for brilliance coupled with impatience. Former employees described him as demanding, quick-tempered, and completely focused on results above all else. The 50th floor was eerily quiet compared to the bustling lower levels. The carpet was thicker, the lighting softer, the artwork on the walls clearly expensive. Keanu pushed his cart quietly, careful not to disturb anyone behind the frosted glass doors of meeting rooms. He was emptying a trash bin when he heard raised voices from around the corner. Instinctively, he slowed his movements to listen. "These numbers are completely unacceptable," a sharp voice cut through the air. "We promised the board 20% growth this quarter. This is barely 15. "Sir, considering the market downturn, 15% is actually quite strong," replied a quieter voice. "Did I hire you to make excuses? Fix it. I want new projections by tomorrow morning." Keanu peeked around the corner and saw Maxwell Stone himself, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, glaring at a nervous-looking man clutching a tablet. Stone was taller in person than he appeared in photos, with a commanding presence that seemed to fill the hallway. The nervous employee nodded quickly and hurried away, nearly bumping into Keanu and his cleaning cart. "Sorry," the man mumbled, not making eye contact before rushing toward the elevators. Stone turned, noticing Keanu for the first time. His eyes swept over the maintenance uniform with barely concealed disdain. "The windows in my office have smudges," he said coldly. "Take care of it." Without waiting for a response, he walked away, already absorbed in his phone. Keanu stood there for a moment, processing the interaction. In his 20-plus years in Hollywood, he'd met all types of people with oversized egos and demanding personalities. But there was something different about being on the receiving end when the other person had no idea who you really were. He wheeled his cart to Stone's office, a massive corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. The furniture minimal but clearly expensive. Awards and magazine covers featuring Stone lined one wall. As Keanu sprayed glass cleaner on the windows, he noticed a small framed photo partially hidden behind a stack of books. It showed a younger Stone with his arm around a woman, both of them laughing. It was the only personal item in the entire office and the only image where Stone was smiling. For the next hour, Keanu worked methodically, cleaning not just the windows but every surface in the office. He found himself wondering about the CEO. What drove someone to build such success while apparently leaving little room for connection with others? By the end of his first day, Keanu's feet throbbed and his shoulders ached. He'd cleaned 14 bathrooms, vacuumed 5 conference rooms, and emptied more trash bins than he could count. As he changed out of his uniform in the small locker room, Lou patted him on the back. "You survived day 1, the older man said with a smile. "Coming back tomorrow?" Keanu nodded, surprised to find he was looking forward to it. "Definitely." On the bus ride home, he watched his fellow passengers. Office workers loosening ties, retail employees checking phones, students with headphones. He was one of them now, at least temporarily. Not Keanu Reeves, the movie star, but Kevin Reed, the janitor, invisible to most but essential nonetheless. Back in his apartment, he carefully removed his disguise elements and ordered takeout. As he ate his dinner, he opened a notebook and began writing observations about his day. The physical toll of the work, the interactions between employees, the clear hierarchy that determined who was seen and who remained invisible. This experience was already giving him insights he couldn't have gained any other way. For his next film role as a man who changes his identity, these details would add authenticity. But more than research, Keanu realized he was genuinely curious about the people he'd met today. Lou, Pedro, Vicky, and even the intimidating Maxwell. Stone tomorrow would be day 2 of his experiment in anonymity. As he set his alarm for 6 a.m., Keanu wondered what new perspectives awaited him at Apex Innovations, and how long he could maintain his disguise in a world where being overlooked was both a challenge and a strange kind of freedom. 2 weeks into his undercover job at Apex Innovations, Keanu had settled into a comfortable routine. His muscles no longer screamed at the end of each shift, and he'd memorized the building's layout, knowing exactly which floors needed attention at what times. More importantly, he'd become truly invisible to most employees. Just another blue uniform moving quietly through the halls. The morning started like any other. Keanu arrived at 7:25, changed into his uniform, and met Lou in the supply room to prep their carts. "Big day upstairs," Lou mentioned as he filled spray bottles with cleaning solution. "Some hotshot investors from Tokyo are meeting with Stone and the board. Whole 50th floor is on edge." "Should we stay clear?" Keanu asked, loading fresh towels. Onto his cart, Lou shook his head. "Opposite, they want everything spotless. You're on the executive conference room. Make it shine before they arrive at 10. Keanu nodded, feeling a strange flutter of nervousness. In his regular life, he'd attended countless high-pressure meetings and premieres worth millions of dollars. Yet somehow the thought of cleaning a conference room before important investors arrived made him anxious in a completely different way. The 50th floor was buzzing when he arrived. Staff members hurried about with folders and tablets, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Keanu kept his head down as he pushed his cart toward the main conference room, a massive space with a table that could seat 30 people. Inside, he worked, methodically, dusting every surface, polishing the massive wooden table until it gleamed, making sure each of the leather chairs was perfectly aligned. He took extra care with the windows, remembering Stone's complaint from his first day. As he finished, a young woman hurried in carrying stacks of presentation folders. "Oh, good. You're almost done," she said, not really looking at him as she placed a folder at each seat. "They'll be here in 30 minutes. Keanu recognized her as Zoe Chen, Stone's executive assistant. From his observations over the past 2 weeks, he'd noted she seemed to be one of the few people not completely terrified of the CEO, though she maintained a professional distance. "Just finishing up," he replied, wiping down the last window. Zoe glanced up at his voice, doing a quick double take that made Keanu's heart skip. Had she recognized him? He adjusted his fake glasses and quickly turned back to his work. "The water pitchers need ice," she said after a moment. "Could you make sure they're filled before you go?" Of course. As he filled crystal pitchers with ice and water in the executive kitchen, Keanu overheard snippets of conversation from staff members rushing past. "The Nakamura Group could double our Asian market presence. Stone's been preparing for this for months. If this goes south, we can kiss those expansion plans goodbye." The stakes were clearly high. Keanu wheeled his cart back to the conference room, now transformed with pitchers of water, elegant notepads, and presentation materials at each seat. Zoe was making final adjustments, straightening items that already looked perfectly aligned to Keanu's eye. "Nervous?" he asked before he could stop himself. She looked up, surprised that the maintenance guy was speaking to her. For a moment, Keanu thought she might ignore him, but instead, her shoulders relaxed slightly. These investors could change everything for the company, she admitted. And Mr. Stone has been intense about making sure it goes perfectly. "I've noticed he can be demanding," Keanu said carefully. A hint of a smile touched Zoe's lips. "That's putting it mildly." She checked her watch. "You should probably finish up. They'll be here soon." Keanu nodded and gathered his cleaning supplies. As he headed for the door, Zoe called after him. "Thanks for getting everything so clean. It looks great." It was such a small thing, being acknowledged, being thanked. But Keanu realized how rare it had been during his time undercover. He smiled back at her. "Happy to help." He was just finishing up the executive bathroom when the elevator doors opened, revealing Maxwell Stone surrounded by 4 board members. They walked past without noticing Keanu, all focused on Stone as he spoke rapidly about quarterly projections and market penetration. Lou had told Keanu to make himself scarce once the meeting started, but he was supposed to remain on the floor in case of any spills or urgent cleaning needs. He found a quiet spot in the supply closet to organize materials. listening to the muffled sounds of introductions and greetings as the Japanese investors arrived. Nearly an hour later, Keanu was restocking paper towels in the executive washroom when he heard raised voices from the conference room. Curious, he moved his cart closer to the door, which had been left slightly ajar. "These projections seem overly optimistic," a heavily accented voice was saying, "especially given your current market position." "With respect, Mr. Nakamura," Stone's voice replied, tension evident in his tone, "we've exceeded projections for 7 consecutive quarters. The data supports our growth model." "The data supports caution," another voice countered. "Your competitors have already established strong partnerships in Seoul and Shanghai." Keanu couldn't see inside, but he could imagine Stone's face growing increasingly frustrated. The CEO wasn't used to being challenged. Suddenly the door swung open, and Stone emerged, his face flushed. He spotted a coffee station nearby and strode toward it, pouring himself a cup with sharp, angry movements. Behind him, through the open door, Keanu could see the investors and board members reviewing documents, heads bent together in discussion. Stone took a long drink of coffee, grimaced, and turned to head back to the meeting. As he did, his arm caught the edge of a decorative plant stand in the hallway. The coffee cup tilted, sending dark liquid splashing across the pristine cream carpet in a widening stain. "Damn it," Stone hissed, looking at the mess. His eyes darted around and landed on Keanu standing nearby with his cleaning cart. "You!" Stone snapped his fingers impatiently. "Clean this properly. Now. The investors can't see this mess." Keanu nodded calmly and moved forward with his cleaning supplies. He knelt by the stain and began treating it with the appropriate solutions. Working quickly but thoroughly, Stone loomed over him, checking his watch repeatedly. "Hurry up and make sure it's completely gone. This carpet costs more than you make in a month." The comment stung more than Keanu expected. In his real life, he could buy the entire building if he wanted to, but as Kevin Reed, maintenance worker, he was nothing more than a convenience to the CEO, someone who existed solely to fix problems and then disappear again. "Is everything all right, Mr. Stone?" Zoe had appeared in the hallway, a tablet clutched to her chest. "Fine. Just clumsy." Stone gestured impatiently at Keanu. "He's taking care of it." "The investors are asking about the Asian market projections," Zoe said carefully. "Mr. Nakamura specifically wants to discuss the Seoul numbers." Stone's jaw tightened. "Tell them I'll be right there." He turned back to Keanu. "Finish this quickly and stay out of sight. The last thing we need is the Nakamura group thinking we run a sloppy operation." As Stone strode back toward the conference room, Zoe lingered for a moment. She glanced at Keanu, still on his knees working on the stain, then at Stone's retreating back. "I'm sorry about that," she said quietly. Keanu looked up, surprised by the apology. "It's okay. Part of the job." "It shouldn't be," she replied, before hurrying after her boss. The carpet required special attention to prevent the coffee from setting into a permanent stain. Keanu worked diligently using the techniques Lou had taught him. As he did, executives and assistants hurried past, stepping around him as if he were just another piece of furniture. Only Zoe seemed to actually see him. When she passed by again with a stack of reports, she paused briefly. "Do you need anything?" "I've got it covered," Keanu assured her. "Thanks for asking, though." She nodded and continued on her way, but not before Keanu noticed how tired she looked, the strain evident around her eyes. By early afternoon, the stain was gone and the meeting continued behind closed doors. Keanu moved to other tasks but found himself returning to the 50th floor more often than necessary, curious about the outcome of the negotiations. Around 4 o'clock, the conference room doors opened, and the investors emerged with Stone and the board members. From his position near the elevators, Keanu watched their expressions, trying to gauge how the meeting had gone. Stone was smiling, but Keanu had been an actor long enough to recognize when a smile didn't reach someone's eyes. The Japanese businessmen bowed formally, their faces revealing nothing. As the group waited for the elevator, Stone suddenly turned and spotted Keanu nearby, adjusting a picture frame that didn't need adjusting. "You," he called out sharply. "Come," Here. Keanu approached cautiously. Yes, sir. The conference room needs to be reset immediately. We have another meeting in 30 minutes. Of course, Keanu replied evenly. Stone leaned closer, lowering his voice so only Keanu could hear. And next time, don't hover around trying to eavesdrop on private business matters. Maintenance staff should be neither seen nor heard, understand? The elevator arrived before Keanu could respond and Stone turned away, once again the charming CEO as he escorted his guests downstairs. Keanu stood still for a moment, processing the interaction. In his 2 decades in Hollywood, he'd encountered plenty of egos, but always as Keanu Reeves, the star. The experience of being dismissed so completely, of being treated as if his very presence was an annoyance, was entirely new. As he cleaned the conference room, removing coffee cups and water glasses, straightening chairs and wiping down the table, Keanu found himself thinking about visibility, about who gets seen in this world and who remains invisible, about how people treat others when they think no one important is watching. He was lost in these thoughts when Zoe entered the room looking exhausted. The investors are leaving without making a decision, she said, more to herself than to him. Mr. Stone is not happy. I gathered that, Keanu replied, tossing used notepads into his trash bag. Zoe studied him for a moment, her head tilted slightly. You know, you look really familiar. Have we met before? Keanu's heart raced, but he kept his expression neutral as he adjusted his fake glasses. I don't think so. I've only been working here a couple weeks. She murmured, still looking at him curiously. I guess you just have one of those faces. As she turned to leave, Keanu realized his experiment in anonymity might be more precarious than he'd thought, and that the next confrontation with Maxwell Stone might reveal more than either of them was prepared for. 3 weeks into his undercover job, Keanu had perfected the art of blending in. He knew which executives came in early and which stayed late. He recognized the security guards by name and had memorized the cleaning schedule for every floor. Yet despite becoming part of the building's invisible workforce, he couldn't shake the feeling that Zoe Chen was watching him more closely each day. That morning, as Keanu restocked paper towels in the executive washroom, Lou poked his head in. Hey, Kevin, got a minute? Keanu still took a moment to respond to his fake name. Sure, what's up? Lou leaned against the door frame, lowering his voice. Just heard from upstairs. Stone's on the warpath today. The Japanese investors backed out yesterday. That doesn't sound good, Keanu said, closing the supply cabinet. It's not. Last time a big deal fell through, he fired 3 people in 1 day. Lou shook his head. Just keep your head down, especially on the executive floor. Thanks for the warning. After Lou left, Keanu checked his watch. It was nearly time for his lunch break. The maintenance staff had a small break room in the basement, but over the past week he'd taken to eating on a bench in the small courtyard behind the building. It was quieter there, and he could observe people without being noticed. As he headed toward the service elevator, Keanu spotted Zoe walking quickly down the hall, her face tight with stress. She was carrying a stack of folders and nearly bumped into him. Sorry, she said automatically, then realized who he was. Oh, it's you, Kevin, right? That's me, Keanu replied, adjusting his fake glasses. Everything okay? You seem stressed. Zoe glanced around to make sure no one was listening. Mr. Stone is, let's just say today isn't a good day to make mistakes. The investors backed out? She looked surprised. News travels fast. Yes, they did, and now we're scrambling to save face with the board. She shifted the folders in her arms. Plus, the PR team is dealing with another issue. Another issue? Zoe bit her lip, clearly debating whether to continue. Someone posted a video online, Mr. Stone yelling at one of the junior analysts. It's getting attention, and not the good kind. Before Keanu could respond, Zoe's phone buzzed. She checked it and sighed. I have to go, just maybe avoid the 50th floor this afternoon if you can. She hurried off, leaving Keanu curious. During his lunch break, he pulled out his personal phone, which he kept separate from his work persona, and searched for news about Apex innovations. Sure enough, a video was circulating on social media showing Maxwell Stone berating a young employee in the lobby, his voice raised and finger pointing accusingly as onlookers watched uncomfortably. The comments were brutal, calling Stone everything, from toxic boss to typical tech tyrant. Several business publications had already picked up the story, using it as an example of outdated leadership styles in the tech industry. Keanu put his phone away, thinking. In his brief time at Apex, he'd witnessed Stone's harsh treatment of employees firsthand, but he'd also seen glimpses of the immense pressure the CEO was under. It didn't excuse the behavior, but it made Stone seem more human, flawed and struggling rather than simply villainous. After lunch, despite Zoe's warning, Keanu found himself assigned to clean the executive floor bathrooms. As he pushed his cart out of the service elevator, the tension on the 50th floor was palpable. Assistants spoke in whispers, executives hurried between offices with worried expressions, and somewhere in the distance, Stone's voice could be heard through a closed door. Keanu worked quietly, keeping his head down. He was nearly finished when the sound of breaking glass came from Stone's office, followed by raised voices. Moments later, the office door flew open, and a group of people hurried out. Among them was Zoe, her face pale. As the group dispersed, Zoe noticed Keanu and approached him. "You shouldn't be up here right now," she said quietly. "Lou sent me to clean the bathrooms," Keanu explained. "I'm almost done. Just be careful." The board called an emergency meeting for tomorrow. They're concerned about the video and the failed deal. Keanu nodded, then, seeing how exhausted she looked, asked, "Are you okay?" The question seemed to surprise her. She blinked, as if no one had bothered to ask her that in a long time. "I'm fine. It's just been a long day. Maybe you need a break, even a short one." A small smile touched her lips. "That obvious, huh? Sometimes an outside perspective helps," Keanu said with a shrug. Zoe glanced at her watch. "I have 15 minutes before the next crisis. There's a coffee shop downstairs." "I'll meet you there," Keanu said. "Let me just put this card away." 10 minutes later, they sat in a quiet corner of the building's coffee shop. Zoe had removed her blazer and looked younger, more vulnerable without her professional armor. 3 years, she said, answering Keanu's question about how long she'd worked for Stone. "Started as an intern, worked my way up. The job looks amazing. On paper, executive assistant to a famous CEO, great salary, prestige. But," Keanu prompted, "but some days I wonder if it's worth it." She stirred her coffee absently. "Don't get me wrong, Mr. Stone is brilliant. The company wouldn't exist without him. But the way he treats people, like the guy in the video?" Zoe nodded. "That happens more than you'd think. Not usually in public, though. That's why this is such a PR disaster." Keanu took a sip of his tea, considering. "Have you ever thought about working somewhere else?" "All the time," she admitted. "But then I think about how it would look if I quit. Like I couldn't handle the pressure. Or like you respect yourself enough to work somewhere you're valued," Keanu suggested. Zoe looked at him curiously. "You don't talk like most maintenance workers." Keanu's heart skipped. Had he slipped up? "What do you mean?" "I don't know. Something about the way you phrase things." She leaned forward. "And you look so familiar. I can't shake the feeling we've met before." Keanu adjusted his glasses nervously. "I just have one of those faces." "No, it's more than that." Zoe studied him intently. Then her eyes widened and she gasped softly. "Oh my God, you're him, aren't you?" Keanu tensed, ready to deny it, but something in her expression stopped him. There was no point lying. She'd figured it out. "Please keep your voice down," he said quietly. "You're Keanu Reeves," she whispered, incredulous. "What are you doing working as a janitor at Apex?" "Research for a role," he explained, keeping his voice low. "I'm playing a character who changes his identity in my next film. I wanted to experience what it's like to be invisible." "And you picked our company?" Zoe looked both amazed and confused. "My stunt double's cousin works in HR. She helped set it up, very quietly." Keanu leaned forward. No one else knows, not even Lou. I don't even know what to say. Zoe ran a hand through her hair. I've been giving career advice to Keanu Reeves. Keanu smiled. And it was good advice. Wait, so all this time, when Mr. Stone was treating you like... She trailed off embarrassed, like I was beneath his notice. Keanu finished for her. That's kind of the point of the experiment, to experience how people treat you when they think you're nobody important. And how has that been? Zoe asked, genuinely curious. Keanu considered the question. Eye-opening. Some people like Stone barely see you. Others like Lou treat everyone with respect regardless of their job. It's revealing. I can't believe I'm having this conversation, Zoe said, shaking her head. So what happens now? Are you going to reveal yourself? Because that video of Stone would become 100 times bigger news if people knew he was yelling at maintenance staff while Keanu Reeves was mopping floors one room over. That's not why I'm here, Keanu said firmly. I'm not looking to embarrass anyone or create a media circus. I just wanted to understand what it feels like to be on the other side of privilege. Zoe nodded slowly. Your secret's safe with me. But, can I ask you something? Sure. What's it like being so famous that you have to disguise yourself to experience normal life? It was a thoughtful question, one that made Keanu pause. It's like living in a bubble. People see the image, not the person. They project what they want onto you. This disguise, it's the closest I've come to being treated like a normal person in years. That sounds lonely, Zoe said softly. It can be, Keanu admitted. But then again, everyone has their bubbles, even Stone. Zoe checked her watch and sighed. I should get back. Crisis management meeting in 5 minutes. As they stood to leave, she added, For what it's worth, you make a very convincing janitor. Keanu smiled. Thanks. And for what it's worth, you deserve a boss who values you. They parted ways in the lobby, Zoe heading for the executive elevator and Keanu toward the service area. As he walked, he thought about their conversation and how quickly things had changed now that one person knew his true identity. Back in the maintenance room, Lou was assigning afternoon tasks. Kevin, need you to help with some furniture moving on 48. They're reconfiguring the conference room. Keanu nodded, grabbing his work gloves. As he headed out, Lou called after him. Oh, and heads up. There's a rumor going around that the board is bringing in someone big to help with the PR mess. Some celebrity spokesperson to smooth things over with the public and investors. Might see some famous faces around here soon. Keanu froze. A celebrity spokesperson? Yeah, Lou said, checking his clipboard. Don't know who yet. Guess we'll find out tomorrow at the all-hands meeting. Stone hates the idea, from what I hear. Says the company doesn't need Hollywood types telling them how to run things. Keanu turned away to hide his smile. If only Stone knew just how close a Hollywood type had already come to his inner sanctum, and how much that particular actor had learned about the man behind the CEO title. The irony wasn't lost on Keanu as he rode the service elevator upward. He'd come here seeking anonymity, a break from being recognized. Now, he might be asked to be the very face of the company, while the man who had ordered him to clean this properly remained oblivious to who had been kneeling before him with a rag and spray bottle. Tomorrow's all-hands meeting was going to be interesting, to say the least. The morning of the all-hands meeting arrived with a buzz of anticipation throughout Apex Innovations. Keanu reported for his shift as usual, but nothing felt normal about the day. Overnight, the video of Stone berating the junior employee had gained even more traction online. News vans were parked outside the building, and security had been increased at all entrances. In the maintenance break room, the staff huddled around Lou's phone, watching a business news segment about the growing PR crisis. Apex Innovation CEO Maxwell Stone is facing backlash after a viral video showed him verbally attacking an employee, the reporter said. The incident comes at a particularly bad time for the tech giant, following the collapse of their deal with the Nakamura Group. Sources inside the company say the board is meeting today to discuss Stone's leadership. Think they'll fire him? Pedro asked, leaning over Lou's shoulder to see the screen. Lou shook his head. Stone founded this place. It's his baby. They'll bring in some PR folks, make him apologize, maybe send him to one of those executive charm schools. All hands meeting is at 10, Vicky added. Attendance mandatory even for maintenance staff. That never happens. Keanu listened silently, wondering how the day would unfold. After Zoe had recognized him yesterday, he'd spent the evening considering his options. He could continue his undercover role until his planned end date next week. He could quietly resign and disappear. Or he could use this unexpected situation to make a point about dignity and respect in the workplace. His thoughts were interrupted by a text message from Zoe. Board wants to meet with you before the all hands. Conference room B, 9:15. I told them I had a contact who could reach you. Hope that's okay? Keanu texted back. I'll be there, then put his phone away. Kevin, you okay? Lou asked, noticing his distraction. You look worried. Just thinking about the meeting, Keanu replied honestly. Don't stress. We just have to stand in the back and look attentive, Lou assured him. Nobody notices the cleaning staff anyway. The irony of Lou's statement wasn't lost on Keanu. Maybe that's part of the problem, he said quietly. At 9:10, Keanu slipped away from his duties and took the elevator to the 49th floor where conference room B was located. He was still wearing his maintenance uniform but had removed his fake glasses and washed the temporary gray dye from his hair in the bathroom sink. He looked somewhere between Kevin Reed and Keanu Reeves, a visual representation of his current state of mind. Zoe was waiting outside the conference room, pacing nervously. When she saw him, her eyes widened. You're still in uniform, she whispered. That's intentional, Keanu replied. Who's in there? The entire board of directors, the head of PR and a very angry Maxwell Stone. Zoe bit her lip. They think I've arranged for Keanu Reeves to come in as a surprise consultant to help with the PR crisis. They don't know you've been working here for weeks. And Stone has no idea? None. He's actually against bringing you in. Says celebrities don't understand business. Keanu couldn't help smiling at that. Ready? Zoe took a deep breath and nodded. She opened the door to the conference room, and Keanu followed her inside. The conversation at the table immediately stopped as all eyes turned toward them. 8 board members sat around a long table, with Stone at the head. Their expressions ranged from confusion to shock as they took in the man in the maintenance uniform. Ms. Chen, what is the meaning of this? Stone demanded, standing up. Where is Keanu Reeves? And why have you brought a janitor to this meeting? Zoe stepped aside. Mr. Stone, board members, I'd like to introduce you to Keanu Reeves. A stunned silence fell over the room. Stone's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and then dawning recognition as he stared at Keanu. This is some kind of joke, he finally said, but his voice lacked conviction. It's not a joke, Mr. Stone, Keanu said, stepping forward. His voice was different now, confident, articulate, without the slight hesitation he'd adopted as Kevin Reed. For the past month, I've been working undercover as a member of your maintenance staff. The board members erupted in surprised murmurs. The head of PR, a woman named Diane, looked like she might faint from shock. But why? One of the board members asked. Research for an upcoming film role, Keanu explained. I wanted to experience what it's like to be invisible, to do essential work that goes unnoticed and often unappreciated. Stone had sunk back into his chair, his face pale. You've been cleaning the offices, the bathrooms for a month? I have, Keanu confirmed. Including yours, Mr. Stone. You may recall last week when you spilled coffee before the Nakamura meeting. You told me to clean this properly, and mentioned the carpet cost more than I make in a month. The board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. Stone looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. Why are you revealing yourself now? Diane asked, clearly already thinking about the PR angles. Because I've learned something valuable during my time here, Keanu said, addressing the entire room. I've learned that how people treat those they think don't matter reveals their true character. I've seen executives who never fail to say please and thank you to maintenance staff. And I've seen others who can't even make eye contact with the people who empty their trash. He turned to Stone. You've built an impressive company, Mr. Stone, but you've created a culture of fear rather than respect. Stone's jaw tightened. You have no right to judge how I run my company based on playing janitor for a few weeks. You're right, Keanu agreed calmly. I don't. But your employees have that right. The people who work here every day, at every level, deserve dignity. And from what I've seen, many of them aren't receiving it. An older board member leaned forward. Mr. Reeves, what exactly are you proposing here? Because if you're planning to go public with some expose about our company culture, I should inform you about our confidentiality policies. Keanu shook his head. I'm not interested in creating negative publicity for Apex. That's not why I'm here. But I do think you have an opportunity to turn this current crisis into something positive. How? Diane asked, clearly intrigued. By acknowledging the problem and committing to real change, Keanu said. Not just a PR statement, but actual changes in how people are treated, from the maintenance staff all the way up to the executive level. The room fell quiet as the board members considered his words. Stone stared down at the table, his expression unreadable. Finally, the board chairwoman spoke up. Mr. Reeves, could we have the room for a few minutes to discuss this amongst ourselves? Of course. Keanu nodded and followed Zoe out into the hallway. Once the door closed behind them, Zoe turned to him with wide eyes. That was intense. How do you feel? Like I just auditioned for the most important role of my life, Keanu admitted with a slight smile. What happens now? Zoe asked, glancing nervously at the closed door. That depends on them. And on Stone. They waited in silence for nearly 15 minutes before the door opened and Diane appeared. They'd like you to come back in, she said, her expression giving nothing away. Inside, the atmosphere had changed. The board members looked more relaxed, while Stone appeared resigned but composed. The chairwoman gestured for Keanu to take a seat. Mr. Reeves, we've had a frank discussion about the issues you've raised. While the method of your research was unorthodox, we believe your insights are valuable. Stone cleared his throat. The board has suggested, and I have agreed, that we need to address some cultural issues at Apex. Each word seemed to cost him effort, but he continued. I've agreed to work with a leadership coach and to implement a company-wide dignity initiative. Keanu nodded, impressed despite himself at Stone's willingness to adapt. There's more, the chairwoman continued. We're about to announce these changes at the all-hands meeting. We'd like you to be part of that announcement, Mr. Reeves. Your presence would add credibility to our commitment to change. Keanu considered the request. What exactly did you have in mind? We thought perhaps you could share some of your observations in a constructive way and express support for the company's new direction, Diane explained. I can do that, Keanu agreed. But I'd like to add one condition. Which is? Stone asked, a hint of his usual sharpness returning. I want the maintenance staff front and center at the meeting, not standing in the back or lining the walls. Especially Lou, who's headed the department for 15 years and knows this building better than anyone. The request clearly surprised them, but after a moment, the chairwoman nodded. Consider it done. 30 minutes later, the company's largest presentation space was packed with employees from every department. Rumors had spread about a major announcement, though no one seemed to know exactly what was coming. The maintenance staff, looking uncomfortable in their unexpected prominence, occupied the first 2 rows of seats, with Lou in the center looking particularly confused. When Stone walked onto the stage, the room fell silent. He looked different, somehow, still commanding but less rigid, as if a weight had shifted on his shoulders. Good morning, he began. Many of you have seen the video that's been circulating online. Before I say anything else, I want to apologize to Tom from accounting, who deserved better treatment from me. A murmur ran through the crowd at this unexpected opening. For the past 10 years, I've pushed this company to be the best. In doing so, I've sometimes forgotten that companies aren't buildings or products or profit margins. They're people. Stone paused, seeming to gather himself. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for Apex. We're launching a company-wide initiative focused on workplace dignity and respect at all levels. The employees exchanged surprised glances, clearly not expecting this from their hard-driving CEO. To help us kick off this initiative, we've invited someone with a unique perspective on our company culture. Someone who's seen Apex from an angle most of us never consider. Stone took a breath. For the past month, this person has been working undercover as a member of our maintenance staff, observing how we operate when we think no one is watching. Confused murmurs filled the room. In the front row, Lou's eyes widened as he turned to look at his co-workers. Please welcome Keanu Reeves. The room erupted in gasps and exclamations as Keanu walked onto the stage, still wearing his maintenance uniform. Phones immediately appeared as people tried to capture the surreal moment. Lou's mouth had fallen open in shock. "Kevin?" he said loudly enough to be heard over the commotion. Keanu smiled and gave him a small wave before turning to address the stunned audience. "For the past month, I've been Kevin Reed, maintenance worker. I've cleaned your offices, emptied your trash, and fixed your coffee spills. Some of you nodded hello. Many of you never saw me at all. A few of you, and you know who you are, showed kindness that made difficult days easier." As he spoke, Keanu could see the realization dawning on faces throughout the room. The executive who had always thanked him for cleaning her office looked proud. The manager who had regularly left messes for others to clean looked deeply uncomfortable. What I've learned during my time here is that dignity isn't a luxury. It's essential, and it starts with seeing each other, regardless of job title or position. He turned to look at Stone, who nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. In that moment, Keanu realized something unexpected. Beneath the harsh exterior, Maxwell Stone was capable of change. The question was whether that change would last beyond today's public relations crisis. Only time would tell. But as Keanu looked out at the faces of people he'd worked alongside, Lou, Pedro, Vicky, and the others who had unknowingly welcomed a movie star into their ranks, he felt hopeful. Sometimes being truly seen was all it took to start a transformation. The news spread like wildfire. Keanu Reeves had worked undercover as a janitor at Apex Innovations for a month. By that evening, the story had overtaken the original viral video of Stone's outburst. Social media exploded with memes and hot takes. Morning shows booked workplace culture experts to discuss the implications. Former Apex employees came forward with their own stories. Through it all, Keanu declined interview requests. He had made his point, and now he wanted to step back and see what would happen next. Would Stone's commitment to change be sincere, or would it fade once the spotlight moved on? 2 days after the revelation, Keanu was enjoying a rare morning of peace in his apartment when his phone rang. It was Zoe. "Have you seen the news?" she asked without preamble. "I've been avoiding it," Keanu admitted. "Why?" Stone called a surprise. "Meeting this morning. He announced a company-wide pay increase for all maintenance and support staff, effective immediately. And he's implementing a reverse mentoring program where executives spend 1 day a month working alongside people in different departments." Keanu raised his eyebrows, genuinely surprised. "That sounds promising." "There's more," Zoe continued, her voice excited. "He's asked Lou to join the company's leadership committee, said the maintenance team has insights about the company that have been ignored for too long." How did Lou take it? He was stunned at first, but then he started rattling off ideas about improving efficiency and employee satisfaction. Turns out he's had thoughts about this stuff for years, just nobody ever asked him. Keanu smiled, picturing Lou's face. "And how's Stone handling it all?" Zoe paused. "It's interesting. He's still Stone, direct, demanding, impatient. But there's something different, like he's actually listening now." Another pause. "He asked about you, actually." "What did he want to know?" "If you might be willing to meet with him, just the two of you away from the office." Keanu considered this. Part of him wanted to move on, to return to his own life and leave Apex behind. But he was curious about Stone's transformation, if it was real, and if it would last. "Tell him I'll meet him," Keanu decided, "but not At some fancy restaurant. There's a community center in Westlake where I volunteer sometimes. They're having a meal service this Saturday. If he wants to talk, he can meet me there at noon. 3 days later, Keanu arrived at the Westlake Community Center in jeans and a simple black t-shirt. He had been helping here occasionally for years whenever his schedule allowed. The center provided meals and services to people experiencing homelessness and those struggling to make ends meet. Today, they expected to serve lunch to over 200 people. Keanu checked in with Gina, the center's director, and put on an apron. He was arranging trays in the serving line when Maxwell Stone walked through the door. The CEO looked distinctly out of place in his designer casual clothes. He stood awkwardly near the entrance, scanning the room until he spotted Keanu. "You came," Keanu said as Stone approached. "You sound surprised," Stone replied. "Honestly, I am a little." Stone glanced around at the volunteers preparing for the lunch service. "So what happens now? We talk?" Keanu handed him an apron. "First, we work, then we talk." Stone looked at the apron as if it might bite him. "I'm not dressed for—" "Neither are the people who'll be coming through that door in 30 minutes, Keanu interrupted gently. "But we're going to serve them anyway." After a moment's hesitation, Stone took the apron and put it on. Keanu introduced him to Gina, who assigned him to serve vegetables on the line, explaining portion sizes and how to use the serving spoons. When the doors opened and people began filing in, Stone was clearly uncomfortable. His movements were stiff as he scooped green beans onto plates. But as the line continued, something shifted. He began making eye contact with people, responding to their thanks, even smiling occasionally. Midway through the service, an elderly man with weathered skin and bright eyes approached Stone's station. "Extra beans, please, young man," he requested. "They're the only green thing I'll eat all week." Stone added a generous portion, then, after a moment's thought, added another scoop. "There you go, sir," the man beamed. "You're new here. I know all the regulars." "First day," Stone admitted. "Well, you're doing just fine," the man assured him, moving along. Keanu, serving bread at the next station, caught Stone's eye and nodded approvingly. For 2 hours, they worked side by side, serving food, refilling trays, and eventually cleaning up. By the end, Stone's expensive shirt was splattered with food stains, and he had dropped his stiff posture. As the last of the center's guests departed, Keanu and Stone sat down at an empty table, both tired, but somehow energized. "So," Keanu began, "you wanted to talk?" Stone nodded, looking thoughtful. "I wanted to understand. Why did you reveal yourself that day in the meeting? You could have finished your research and left without anyone knowing. Would anything have changed if I had?" Keanu asked simply. Stone considered this, then shook his head. "Probably not." "That's why," Keanu said. "I didn't set out to create some big moment of public accountability, but once I saw the opportunity to make a real difference, it felt wrong to walk away." "The board is thrilled, by the way," Stone said with a hint of his old sharpness. "Our stock price has actually gone up since your revelation. They're calling it the Reeves effect, when transparency and ethical treatment boost investor confidence." Keanu couldn't help laughing. "That wasn't exactly my goal." "No, I don't imagine it was." Stone ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly tired. "You know, I built Apex from nothing, 16-hour days for years. I always thought that justified my time methods. That results were what mattered, not feelings. And now? Now I'm wondering what kind of company we might have become if I'd paid attention to both." They sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the kitchen cleanup echoing around them. "Can I ask you something?" Stone said finally. "That day with the coffee spill before the Nakamura meeting, I was particularly harsh." "You were," Keanu agreed. "Yet you cleaned it up perfectly, even knowing who you were and how I was treating you." Stone shook his head, puzzled. "Why not just do a mediocre job? I deserved it." "The job wasn't about you," Keanu said simply. "It was about doing good work, regardless of who noticed or cared." Stone nodded slowly, absorbing this. "I have a lot To learn, don't I? We all do, Keanu said. That's kind of the point. 6 months later, Keanu sat in a darkened theater at the premiere of his new film, Invisible. On screen, his character, a man who changes his identity to understand what life is like for those who go unseen, was having his moment of revelation. The audience was completely silent, captivated by the story. Keanu glanced to his right where Maxwell Stone sat watching intently, a guest of honor at Keanu's personal invitation. The film had been dramatically reshaped by Keanu's experience at Apex. What had started as a straightforward thriller had evolved into something more nuanced, a meditation on visibility, dignity, and transformation. Critics were already calling it one of his most compelling performances. When the lights came up for the closing credits, the audience erupted in applause. As people began filing out for the after-party, Stone turned to Keanu. That was remarkably close to home, he said. Keanu smiled. Art, imitating life. Did you always plan to put me in the story? Stone asked, referencing the film's antagonist, a driven CEO who learns empathy through an unexpected relationship with the disguised protagonist. Not originally, Keanu admitted, but your journey became part of mine. It felt right to include it. Well, you were kinder to the character than you could have been, Stone noted. He got a redemption arc. So did you, Keanu pointed out. They walked together toward the exit. Outside, photographers waited, but for once, Keanu wasn't concerned about being recognized. How's Lou doing as a committee member? He asked as they paused in the lobby. Turns out the man's a genius at systems efficiency. He's revolutionizing our approach to everything from supply chain to employee scheduling. Stone shook his head in amazement. 15 years he worked for us, and we never asked what he thought about anything. And the Dignity Initiative? Still, going strong, Stone assured him. Not perfect, I still lose my temper sometimes. But we're measuring progress on workplace satisfaction alongside profits now. Both are up, surprisingly. As they prepared to face the flashing cameras outside, Stone added, I'm heading to the community center again on Saturday. Gina's got me, helping with their employment workshop now, teaching resume skills. I heard, Keanu said with a smile. She says you're surprisingly good at it. I know what employers are looking for, Stone shrugged. Turns out I'm not half bad at explaining it to others. Later that night, after the interviews and photo ops, Keanu stood alone on the balcony of the after-party venue. Below him, Los Angeles sparkled with light and possibility. His phone buzzed with a text from his agent about the film's projected opening weekend. The numbers looked excellent. Invisible would likely be both a critical and commercial success. But as he gazed out at the city, Keanu realized that wasn't what mattered most to him about this project. What mattered were the unseen ripples. Lou finding his voice after 15 years of silence. Zoe gaining the confidence to advocate for her team. Stone discovering that empathy and success weren't mutually exclusive. And for himself, he had sought anonymity and found connection instead. He had disappeared to become Kevin Reed and somehow become more fully himself in the process. Inside the party, people were celebrating the film's triumphant premiere. Outside, somewhere in the city, the real Kevin Reeds of the world, the maintenance workers, drivers, service staff, and countless others who kept everything running, were going about their essential work, seen or unseen. Keanu raised his glass in a silent toast to them all. The transformation wasn't just Stone's or even his own. It was the small, powerful recognition that everyone deserves dignity, everyone has value, and sometimes the most important people in our lives are the ones we've been trained not to see. That, he decided, was the real story worth telling.